What's going on, traders? Sandro O'Connell with Pristine Capital coming at you with yet another market recap video. It is August 25th, 2021. Please go ahead, smash the like button on this video, subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate you. Today, we're going to talk about the price action in the indices. We're going to go under the hood. We'll check out our sectors and style factors. We'll go through my trades for the day as well. I did have a lot of trading activity. Oh, wow. Waffles is making a cameo back there. Yeah, I used to have... So I did a couple things for these videos. First, my desk was somewhere in the corner, and I didn't really like the view, so then I went to like a white background. When I did that, I actually moved the desk to a much better spot in the room. And at a certain point, it was like, wait a minute. Now that I'm over here, there's a much better view. So yeah, I took off the white background. So yeah, now you'll see Waffles make many more cameos in these videos. But yeah, let's jump into it. Quick risk disclaimer: nothing in this video should be construed as investment advice or recommendations. Please follow your own trading plan and your own risk parameters. And last but certainly not least, do not YOLO your entire account into any of my trades, or anyone's trades for that matter. All right, let's dive in. All right, cool. So let's take a look at our box scores for today. So S&P 500 as measured by the SPY, up 0.21%. Today was a bit of a slog. We have the Jackson Hole Symposium starting tomorrow. Apparently we're going to get some news from the big man himself, Jerome Powell, about the taper and the cadence of the taper, how it's going to go, etc. So yeah, today was a pretty boring day in the markets, very light volume. SPY up 0.21%. We had the NASDAQ QQQ up 0.11%. We had the IWM small caps, which were our leader, but surprisingly, they closed well off the highs today. So that definitely threw me for a bit of a loop. And then we had the Dow Jones up 0.13%. In terms of breadth was a tad weaker than the last few days, but it was still strong overall. We had 72% advancers in the SPY, 64% advancers in the Qs, and the worst, the dogs of the Dow, only 52% advancers in the dogs of the Dow team. But overall, that's still very good. Okay, so let's dive into our indices. And we'll check out the S&P 500. So take a look at what's going on here, team. We're really just following this upward trend. Let's take a look. I actually want to, real quick, let me go on a side tangent. I'm actually not going to go through the Dow today because the Dow is just so darn boring. Let's see, trend line. Okay. Let's just draw like a very crude trend line. I think the ants are going to get in the way a little bit. But yeah, we're pretty much like, let me just take these ants off. Wow, I didn't realize that. It's pretty like a bootlegged trend line. Yeah, this definitely isn't perfect. This is just like me drawing like a crude thing. But yeah, we're definitely trending higher in the S&P 500, and we're just kind of levitating higher. There's been a couple days where, to be honest, we're getting a little bit extended from the 5-day EMA. I've mentioned this a couple of days, and my expectation was, given that we're now entering essentially a new market regime, now we're entering a tapering regime, my sentiment is, hey, we might get more two-way price action, meaning like, more frequent trips to this 20-day moving average, etc. So we'll have to see if that does end up manifesting. But for right now, we're just trending higher, and we definitely are a bit extended. And then we'll pull up the NASDAQ. NASDAQ tagged this Venom R1 pivot, and the NASDAQ is very extended as well. And, we're above all the key moving averages, nothing wrong there. We also have our Russell 2000, and Russell 2000 was our big winner for today, but you will see that, we did take in some poor location longs up above this 50-day moving average, and we pulled back, but we closed above the 50-day. So overall, target acquired, and we're above all the key moving averages in the Russell. I must say, though, we're still stuck inside value. This is monthly value areas where 70% of transactions in the prior month occurred. And really, this is great that we're making progress, but it's kind of funny, like the small caps were in such a dire spot that even after making this incredible 40 run, we're still we still have overhead resistance. It's very interesting. Let's dive deeper into our Finviz heat map. Finviz heat map. So Nvidia was one of our big winners in today's session. Nvidia was very strong, but we had a little bit of mixed action. So Apple was a bit weak. We had Microsoft down slightly, Amazon, but then we had a couple of these guys, Nvidia, Google, Facebook, Tesla, that were all bid. So essentially we had just like no movement in the NASDAQ. And it was really just, we were trading in like such a very tight range today. And let's pull up some of those big winners for today's session. Let's take a look. So we had Nvidia. Nvidia really got, just an incredible breakout. Nvidia at this point is extended from that 20-day moving average, though. But yeah, really good looking, price action here. And then we had Facebook, which was up nicely, traded off the highs though. And then Apple was the, laggard of this group, pulled back to the 20-day moving average. All right, sectors. So let's take a look. These sectors, they're ranked in terms of momentum. At this point, our three top leaders are the blockchain assets in the #1 slot. We have the KWEB Chinese technology ETF in the #2 spot. Who would have thought this thing was like rags to riches, like riding the bottom of this list for so long, and now right at the top. And then home builders are #3. But let's see which did the best during today's session. Today's session, our big winner. Let's see. I see solar energy was up 1.32%. Yeah, looks like solar energy was our big winner for today. In terms of losers, gold miners were down 1.34%. We had consumer staples down ever so slightly. Emerging markets, internet, and e-commerce. And yeah, actually, our biggest loser for today was KWEB, down 1.76%. Had a really fantastic, I think it was like a 10% move yesterday, and we got a little bit of back in filling today. So let's pull up that KWEB. KWEB down 1.76%. Yeah, and we held the bottom of this monthly value area, and we held the 20-day moving average. So I am of the inclination that this is really just like my market bias. I'm willing to change this, if and when the facts change. But I think this is a pretty significant development here, that we jumped back into value on this really nice candle, and that today, we didn't just, slip right into the abyss again. This is actually a pretty nice doji candle. So I'm looking for more upside in these Chinese equities. All right. So those are our sectors. Okay, style factors. We had the momentum style factor up 0.82%. High beta was up another 0.91%. So this reopening trade that we've been seeing is still ongoing. And I expressed that through, shorting Pfizer. So yeah, really nice action across the board. And min-vol was the only style factor that was red. It was down 0.01%, so nothing crazy. But yeah, looking good on these style factors. And very notable, high beta is now in our #2 slot. High beta was really struggling for a couple of weeks there. All right, so let's take a look at some of my trades for today. And in terms of my trading today, I would say, this was a bit discombobulating. If I had to rate my personal performance today on like a scale of 1 to 10, I would probably give myself like a 4. I would say today was like one of my weaker days. And let's see here. So we'll go through some stock trades. So first thing that I did off the open, I bought the dip in Futu. I bought this one for $100 and 5 cents. And I think in hindsight, I probably should have let this one settle in just a little bit more. Futu ended up having a really big shakeout. Luckily, I do have a Futu position on the books. I'm pretty deep in the money on that position, so it's all right in the grand scheme. But I think this one I was a little bit, jumped the gun. This one ended up shaking out all the way below the gap higher from yesterday. So that to me, like, think about it. This Futu, this thing, like, if you don't get out of the way once it starts being super weak, you can really get run over. So I entered this one at about $100. I ended up stopping out at 97 and change, just below this low of the day. And it turned out to be a shakeout. So it ended up working out. Our Futu, was pretty strong throughout the session. But yeah, that one took a stop on my common shares. You can see this one made it all the way back to this 200-hour moving average. So yeah, Futu took that one right off the jump. And then what else? So I got long XP. XP, it's a real estate company for $44.96. This name, it's a small cap name. So I figured, hey, the small caps are really ripping. Let me take this one off the 20-day simple moving average. XP ended up having a really nice performance intraday, but I just did not like how this one really just gave, most of its progress back into the end of the day. So I ended up pulling this one in for a small winner. So yeah, look at this. We rallied on the hourly chart above this 200-hour moving average, and then we just kind of fell apart at the end of the day. So maybe this one, keeps going higher, but I was like, I'm going to pull this risk in, take, that minor base hit and just keep it moving. See, I took that one off. I closed out my D-Lo for a scratch, and D-Lo, I'm actually glad that I did that, because D-Lo, this was a power earnings gap setup. This one, it's more of a thinner name though. So I was like, first I kind of identified early in the morning, I'm a little bit off my game. And whether that's, me or whether it's the market, I think it was a little bit of both. I was trying to trade a very fast tempo when, the VIX has come down considerably. You have to sort of change up your tempo when, the pace of the market's changing. And so the VIX is down here. We're not getting those huge back and forth ranges anymore with volatility, this crush. So yeah, I saw D-Lo as okay, I don't feel like I'm really at my best in this moment. So let me just pull this risk in, because I know these kinds of names, if you're not on point, they can really just rip you apart. So D-Lo closed this, in hindsight, actually pretty close to the high of the day. And this one pulled back really just to the 5-day EMA. So I'm going to keep watching D-Lo. But yeah, I was just okay, let me pull this in. Because one of the things I try to do is once I identify okay, I'm not smooth like butter today. Because some days you can get into that flow and you really are smooth like butter. I had a couple of days there where I really was. Today was it just did not feel that way. So yeah, I was I'm going to pull this risk in. It's all good. Let's see. So took in D-Lo. I also took in my Airbnb for a very similar reason. I did not enter Airbnb at the best trade location yesterday, and I took it in for a small winner. So that's I try to be as proactive as possible. So for me, it's rather than being man, I just let this thing blow me out, oh my gosh, and now I'm taking it in, I'll try to just be I'm just taking some of these in, because I don't care. Because the thing that I've come to realize trading is you really do not have to be in every trade. And a lot of beginning traders, they really think their trading deficit is the stocks that they missed. Oh, this stock really went up and I wasn't in that stock. I'm a loser, I suck at trading, whatever. People get these really negative thoughts. What I've realized along my journey is that it's not the stocks that you're not in that go up a lot that hurt your performance. It's the stocks that you are in that don't work. And then you give back your performance, that sort of thing. Especially as an options player, you can really build performance. When you get on a good cadence, you hit a couple of winners, you can really build your performance very quickly, much more quickly than a regular just stock trader. So as an options trader, given that you have that leverage, you earn the ability to actually be able to slow up your pace a little bit. And you don't really have to be in every single opportunity. You can just kind of pick your spots. So yeah, I'm you know what? This is not an ideal entry. I'm plucking that out. At 108, I took some MicroStrategy long, and I said short squeeze season could be upon us. I started to see, Bitcoin was firming up into the session, so I took some MicroStrategy, and I took some Celsius. And Celsius, take a look here. So this is a good candidate if the small caps, just continue to work. Celsius, this one on the weekly chart, it's been attempting this 80 level a few times. Today it did trade above this monthly value area high. It did pull in though. So I'm going to give this one a little bit more leash because I know a lot of these small caps really pulled in. But yeah, this is like a good, I like this one in case the small caps, continue to have their outperformance run. So yeah, stock trading for the day. And then in terms of options trading, so I would say again, this was, had some good things, had some not so good things. Most of the time, like I'll have losers, and like those are just losers that are like not an issue. It's like, whatever, I took the setup didn't work. I would say I had like at least one like sloppier trade today that I didn't really like. So I closed out. Pfizer ended up being like a nice little, like, I would say this one was not like a base hit. It wasn't a single. I would say this one was like a nice like triple. So Pfizer had some September 17th 50 strike puts. Talked about this, over the past couple days. And this one, once that vaccine like booster shot was approved, then suddenly, there was a wave of selling in this name. So Pfizer, check this out. So I shorted it on this candle right here. So this was literally like the top end candle. And my target was that 20-day simple moving average. We achieved my target. So I pulled in my position. I believe I hit like a 70% winner on part of this position, maybe like a 60% winner on the other part of it. So yeah, I closed out some of it for 305. I had paid 195. And then I closed out another portion of it for 335. And I had paid 195. So that one was, really nice winner. And I rarely ever do that where like I crush a short in an up tape. So that was very cool. And that was like like an overbought setup. I rarely ever short stocks that are overbought, but that one had a very nice news catalyst. So that's something that I want to start exploring more. Like when you have a stock that's just running in anticipation of something, and then that thing happens and it's super overextended, trying it on the short side. So that one was, very good. And that was just like a good feeling. But then I had, this Tesla day trade. Now I would say this one was definitely like poor trade selection. So I took this one, I entered some August 27th, 717.5 calls for 547. Typically for me, I don't go out, that short duration unless it's like I see something very unique. And with Tesla, there wasn't really anything super unique about it. And the NASDAQ wasn't even showing relative strength. So that's why I would say like this one was like a poor, trade selection. I entered those for 547. I ended up stopping out of those for 475. So again, like I would say this one was like, if I could do this day again, that trade I would not have done. But that's okay. Yeah, for me, it's like not that big of a deal. You take your stop loss, you move on, it's all right. And I closed out my Unity for a nice winner, closed out for 1286. I had paid 1092 for those calls. I attempted Q's short, and I ended up stopping out of that one for a pretty tight stop loss, and that to me is okay. So I entered that one for 533. I stopped out of it for $5. That's all right. With the shorts, I'm developing like a good like system for these index shorts where like I'll try them when they look a little bit weak, and if it doesn't work right away, I'll take them off for like a little paper cut, little paper cut. But I had in this last down sequence where I had some of them on and I made like 90% winners. So overall, like I'm sort of like honing in on this trade, but I will say I think this one as well, the market, the intraday range was so small on the Qs, and there was essentially like no pace and really like no volume. So I would say that one was also kind of like not nearly as bad as that Tesla one. I just shouldn't have done that. But I think I probably should rethink that a little bit. So yeah, Qs. And then in terms of long entries, So this was one that I actually liked. So Futu, I had gotten stopped out of my common stock earlier. I have a position that's, really deep in the money on Futu. So I saw Futu shook me out. And like, I'm a pro trader. I'm very cognizant of how these shakeouts occur. So when I get shaken out of a stock, usually my thing is like, wow, hats off. Like those algos, they really got me. Like, I'm looking for the shakeout. So when it happens and it actually gets me, I'm like, okay, I know there was a lot of other players that got shaken out too. And with the shakeouts, it really just goes back to trying to get proper trade location, because you don't really have to worry about that when your trade location is very, very proper. But with Futu, this one I just bought the dip, whatever. Once I saw that, hey, this actually just shook me out, I re-entered it via some October calls. And right now I'm slightly in the money on these calls. And Futu, I would say this was a pretty good close. Not bad for like a day two. Would have been nice to see it get over the 20-day. Overall, we're looking all right. And then what else here? And then I took some SE long. I took some JD long. JD is showing some really nice relative strength compared to almost all of these Chinese equities. And JD just popped out of consolidation. So yeah, in terms of trading today, again, I would say today, rating myself on a scale of 1 to 10, I would probably give myself like a 4 or a 3, but I think that's okay. So what I'm focused on is like, if I get one of those days where like, I just, first trade that I did, I got stopped immediately out of Futu, try to slow up the pace a little bit. If I miss a few things, that's okay. So that's really like the next thing I'm thinking about, like how can I like optimize that a little bit and get my process just like a little bit tighter. But overall, not a bad day. And that's the thing, yesterday in my video, I talked about when you have like those crazy days where you're just like ripping, try not to get too like off the ground, like, oh my god, like my stock went up, like whatever. Because as a trader, like I'm going to be trading for the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, probably 70 years. I might be trading for another 100 years. So for me, like I just know I'm going to experience the full spectrum of emotions. And every trader, they experience that as well. Every investor. You're going to experience the feeling of crushing everything. And you're also going to experience that feeling of where, nothing works. I would say today was like a very mild, like, just kind of like a mad day, whatever. But yeah, it's very important to like, if you have like an amazing day, try to center yourself a little bit, stay on the ground. If you have a day that's, in the middle, that's okay. If you have a day that's a little bit over here, also try to center yourself, stay, both feet on the ground. All right, let's take a quick look. We're going to jump into our VigTech options matrix. All right, let's take a look at today's combined flows. Let's see these flow leaders, team. All right, so we have Tesla taking the top. Then we have Amazon reclaiming it. And then, of course, Tesla. Tesla's like a breeding ground for options traders. Okay, so I would say the most noteworthy in here is AMC. Let's pull up the AMC chart. And this one I know, like, once the short squeezes start coming, like AMC is like, everyone loves this one. So AMC had a fantastic day yesterday. And then this was day two. And for day two, I would say it didn't do so bad. It didn't lose this 50-day. It did shake out, some poor location longs up here. But overall, yeah, if you're really interested in AMC, like I'm definitely not. I don't really care much for these like meme squeezes and whatever. But some traders are very good at them. So yeah, you actually have a decent, risk reward entry if you enter, just above that 50 and you set your stop, essentially just below it, like a close or two below it. That about does it for our options flow for today. That also does it for this market recap video. I'm actually going to go, I have a group run at 6 o'clock. So I'm going to do like a quick 5 miles. with a bunch of runners. So I got to head over to the running store. That's where we're all meeting up. But hope you all had an awesome trading day, and I will see you all tomorrow.